and serve the interest of cooperative federalism better than an enlarged federal bureaucracy. We, the United States Supreme Court, they should respect Congress and its appraisal of its own constitutional power.
Balance of power.
Yeah. Did we lose a little balance here?
There is none.
And is this nutty? I mean, their wife should have told them, "Are you nuts?" Shouldn't have been my wife. Should have been theirs. Well, their husbands too, because there was two ladies. Yeah. Anyway, wow. Pretty amazing stuff, isn't it? No, just one lady on this one is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay. But you see, this, folks, this made it all worthwhile. Everything I put into this fight. Ultimately losing my job, having to move. Yeah, the whole thing that I told my wife, it did. To make it all worthwhile, the one sentence there in yellow made it all worthwhile for me. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day.
That's brilliant.
Is that something?
That's awesome.
Now, folks, you got to look at that. The crisis of the day. Have you heard that?
Don't
It's
let
the
a crisis
mantra.
go to waste.
It's the mantra of the Obama administration. Never let a good crisis go to waste, and this administration won't. Even if they have to fabricate it, and he's not the first to do it. Not by any means. And why? Because they know they can control us through those crises. And it's a worldwide phenomenon. Wait a second, I'm just about done. I gotta get.
Who wrote that?
Scalia.
Yeah, that's Scalia. And again, that part is in here twice. I put it at the end so it's the last thought you'll remember. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. If your local officials follow that, how much government gets off your back?
A lot.
Now we gotta listen to General James Kimber.
Government derives its power from the consent of the people. Every government, everywhere. Well, let me make this very plain to you, sir. We do not consent, and we will never consent. And what you've got to do is you've got to go back over there to your parliament, and you've got to make it very plain to them. You've got to tell them that what we're fighting for here is freedom from what we consider to be the rule of a foreign power. I mean, that's all we want. That's what this war is all about.
Jim.
No. Now, we established this country in the first place with very strong state governments just for that very reason. I mean, let me put it to you this way. My home is in Virginia. The government of my home is home. Virginia would not allow itself to be ruled by some king over there in London, and it's not about to let itself be ruled by some president in Washington. Virginia, by God, sir, is going to be run by Virginians.
That is great. That's General James Kimber. This is the movie Gettysburg. I'm not here to debate the reasoning behind the Civil War. We could do that forever. This is only, though, about what? 1864, a mere maybe 75, 80 years after the formation and signing of the Constitution. And we're having a grave constitutional crisis, and it created the Civil War. We're having grave constitutional crises today. And we've got to remember that when we address these problems and look for the solutions, that we do not compromise principles of freedom that our country was founded upon. We cannot destroy America as we look for these solutions. It creates the problem, and it's what we have today. So as we search for the answers, we remember that individual God-given American liberty is the first and most important thing. And I'm sorry, I've said some radical things here tonight, and I've said some of them in my books. And I apologize for this right up front, but it's nevertheless the truth, and I'm not going to withhold it from you. But the greatest threat to our God-given American constitutional liberty is our own federal government. And I'm sorry that that's the case. I wish it were not true. But I'm merely paraphrasing James Madison, and he's on page 19 of this book, and he says, this is a quote, "There are more instances of the abridgment of freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments from those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." The only problem with this, folks, is that the encroachments are no longer gradual, nor are they silent. And Thomas Jefferson sort of, on page 1 of the book, he gives us an idea for the solution. He said, when all government shall be drawn to Washington as the center of all power, it will render powerless the checks provided, the Constitution, and become as venal and oppressive as the government from which we separated. End quote. And the question I have for your public officials and for each one of you, they work for you. When government becomes venal and oppressive, to whom can the people turn for peace, safety, protection, and freedom? If not the very people who promised to uphold and defend our Constitution and erect the barriers. My dear friends, at that training that I went to back when I was a rookie cop in 1983, when Dr. Skousen taught that lesson on the Constitution to 240 big tough cops, I was converted. I don't know what happened to the other 239 cops that were there, but this one was converted. I felt the spirit of freedom so strong in that room, and I surmised that it was the same as the Spirit of God. I took that other oath, and at one time, Dr. Skousen handed all of us his book, The Making of America, big old 700-page thick thing, and he handed it to me, and he looked me in the eyes, and he said, "Promise me that you'll teach these things to your children." I kept that promise, and now I teach them all across the country, and I've started teaching them to my grandchildren, and the oldest one isn't even 5 years old yet. And I got to tell you, there's a little side story to that. My first grandchild was a girl, and she was born on the 4th of July.
Oh.
And her name's Liberty. Liberty LaDawn Hardy. And everybody needs liberty. And this is the thing. At one point, Dr. Skousen had all 240 of us big tough cops stand up, and he taught us a little kindergarten exercise. And I've nicknamed it America's Political Prayer. And it's not a prayer at all, but maybe again, it's the only one we got left. And I close every one of my presentations, every one of my speeches. I don't care if I'm in Maui, which I really like that one, or Bangor, Maine. And I did both of those states in December. And I close every one of my presentations the same way, with America's Political Prayer. And I want to close with this because I want you to know that this comes from my heart, from mine to yours. And I want to dedicate it to you and your children and your grandchildren, because that's the same as mine. And I want to dedicate it to Judge Roll and Dr. Skousen. God rest their souls. And I want you to remember while I'm doing this, that I learned this at police training. And this political prayer goes like this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, and that's the eagle. Long may she be free. Thank you.